Let's see if that's a thing.
It should
Maybe you
be.
need to do
It
these
should
more
work.
often, Wes, so you remember.
I know it's been 6 months. Um, I'm recording to the cloud, so I don't know if that's my cloud. I'm on the Atwater.
Uh, it should it should record to our Zoom account.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'll just go ahead and start. Nobody's popping up in the wait list or the waiting room. So, welcome to the Behind the Label end of year kind of recap Zoom. Thank you all for being here. I hope you are enjoying some wonderful Atwater wine. I hope you've all been well. We are doing only two a year instead of four. The first one, of course, was back in June, and then this is going to be the last one for the year, and then we'll re reconvene next summer, early summer, to do this again. The reasoning is mostly one. I think the biggest one is I'm just kind of unavailable in October, November, just because harvest is going on. Um, and so we kind of just thought, well, let's just do two. The December winter one is kind of like a post harvest recap of like the most recent current vintage. And then the June summer one is more of a kind of update on how that previous vintage wines are doing. In this case, how the 2025 wines will be doing, and maybe some wines that are currently available to you guys. So to start, we'll talk about the 2025 harvest. I'm just going to cycle through some photos here and just kind of talk about the harvest. It was awesome. It was kind of a combination of kind of like a perfect storm. It was a combination of dry days, not particularly hot, but dry, um, and also really cool nights. So we had this big, it's called a diurnal shift, and that's kind of the temperature change from the day to night. And we had a pretty big diurnal shift um, throughout the months of kind of starting in August and all the way through the end of the year, where we would have like nice 70-degree, kind of cool 70-degree but sunny days, and then we would dip down to like 55, even 50 overnight, which is really good for acidity. Um, so what that resulted in is a combination of both really good ripeness, so really good sugar accumulation in the grapes, while also retaining some nice acidity. So, quick kind of fact about grape chemistry. Um, a lot of your sugar accumulation, or all of your sugar accumulation, happens during the day when the grapes is photosynthesizing. Um, and so when basically when the sun is out and it's taking in all those nutrients from the sun and the soil, and it's putting that towards either shoot growth, but also fruit growth during harvest time. And then overnight, the stomatas in the grapes close, and that's when the pH and the acidity of the grapes start to drop. However, the cool thing, or not so cool thing, depending on the vintage, is acidity stops dropping after basically the cooler it gets. So like warm, humid nights result in a bigger drop in acidity. Like 2024 is a great example. We had really hot and dry days, and we also had really warm and humid nights. So we got both sugar accumulation and acid depletion. However, in 2025, we got kind of not necessarily the opposite. We got cool but dry days, so we got good sugar accumulation, but because of those cool nights, we retained some acidity. Um, so, which is in my opinion, was a really great thing. I think 2025 is like a great example of a cool climate vintage. It was dry, but not necessarily hot. And then, of course, we have those cool nights. So we get both ripeness. So you're going to see alcohol levels in your reds and whites kind of around 12.5%, maybe a little higher depending on the variety, around 21, 22 Brix, some approaching 23 or 24, and some a little less. Again, it's very variety dependent. But so good ripeness, but also we have that really crisp acidity that cool climate viticulture like the Finger Lakes is known for. Um, and also because of that dry weather, we had very little disease. So there was no, you can see in this photo here, there's no disease in in sight. We're really just picking out leaves and materials other than grapes. Um, I believe this is Riesling. We've got Trish over here and Ian. These were 2 interns. We got Sam up there, controlling the dumper, and there's me doing my little sorting. Um, so overall, it was a really spectacular vintage, kind of much more of a classic vintage. I kind of said that in 23, and it is the wines are kind of similar to 2023 as well, but um, we did get a little more sugar accumulation because we had just no rain. It was really kind of a wonderful vintage where you, at least as a winemaker and a grape grower, when you stop looking at the weather, you know you've had a good vintage. Because in the Finger Lakes, one day it can be pouring rain, and the next day it's sunny. But in this case, it was just sunshine virtually all September and October. So that was really wonderful. We got Bobby here. Many of you know Bobby. He's very inquisitive about what's going on during harvest. And he's looking at some late harvest Riesling, I believe is what he's looking at. Or I won't call it late harvest Riesling, but it was the last of our picked East West One block, which may or may not go towards a late harvest style wine. We got some more Pinot Noir here, and again, talking about disease, there is none to be seen. And if there's a testament to disease pressure, it is Pinot Noir. It's a finicky, thin-skinned grape, tight clusters. You can see rot wants to live in all of those crevices. Water does not drain very well, and that is a kind of the catalyst for diseases like downy mildew or powdery mildew, or botrytis. Um, and there's virtually none to be seen, which is a rare sight. And then we have the harvester, of course. For those of you who have not seen the harvester function, believe there's some more photos. I'll talk a little more about it, but it goes over the vines, shakes the vines, and then the grapes all fall into a conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt pushes up into these troughs. And then once the troughs are full, we come down with our tractor and our bins, and they're dumped into our bins. And then, of course, you can see us processing. That's kind of what we get on the crush pad. And that's kind of how the majority of our grapes are processed. Not all of them. Some of them are hand picked, and there'll probably be some pictures of that. We've got Trish here punching down. I believe that is Syrah, um, doing her hard punch downs. Back to the harvester, you can see it kind of um, going over the grapes. This is East West One. So the harvester is facing west right now, or going towards the lake. And the tasting room is kind of up in this corner over here. So it shakes those vines and then goes back into those troughs and conveyor belts, and ultimately back into the bins. We've got some end of harvest celebration with the guys, the vineyard crew, and the interns, and then Sam, my assistant. So yeah, ultimately a stellar vintage. You can look forward to both reds and whites, which is not often something you can say. And I try not to say that kind of every year because it's easy to say that. Like 2024, for example, the reds totally outshine the whites. The whites aren't bad, but the reds are really full bodied. As the club members in this chat can attest, the Lagrange, as we'll get to later, is a big full bodied tannic kind of example of a Finger Lakes red. However, in the 2025 vintage, it's looking like it's the best of kind of both worlds. The reds aren't necessarily explosively tannic like, say, 2022 or 2024, but they still have some good body, good tannins, nice sugar accumulation, so good alcohol. And the whites have some good brisk acidity. Chardonnay, I think, is going to be a standout from 2025, as is the dry Riesling. So again, not to keep kind of beating a dead horse here, but the 2025 vintage was really spectacular. If I can get one of those every year, man, my job would be really a lot less stressful. So on to the wine selections. We're going to start with the 2024 Riesling. This is a somewhat newish release. This is club only right now. So back to the 2024 vintage a little bit. It was a warmer vintage. We had those kind of warmer days, and those particularly warm nights. So we do have some slightly lower acidity on the Riesling. Not super low, but as far as Riesling goes, it can range from anywhere from 6 grams all the way up to 9 or even 10. But the Atwater Farm, and particularly the S blocks or the southern blocks, where this wine was made from, tend to have slightly lower acidity but ripen early. And so it makes a kind of a really nice, delicate, off dry style Riesling. Fermentation for this was pretty straightforward. It's always in stainless steel, and it's bottled pretty early, so only 4 months of aging. Bottled in April. The semi-dry Riesling, or just the Riesling in this case, is usually one of our first to be bottled. It's a young wine, or it's a kind of a leaner style, and so we tend to bottle it early. However, an interesting thing for this wine and many of the wines from 2024, it did go through malolactic conversion. Malolactic fermentation, malolactic conversion. So it is not necessarily weightier, but it does kind of have a mid palate that you don't always get from a kind of earlier picked off dry Riesling like this. I really enjoyed this wine with like a really delicate fish. It's a delicate wine, and so it's paired really well with kind of delicate cuisine. Whatever, poached cod or something. Salmon works well too. You could do like a light chicken dish, or even it has enough acidity to go well with like some Thai food or something like that as well, with a little kick. So it's a very nice kind of floral, lemony, citrusy, green apple kind of style Riesling. I see something in the chat. Let me stop talking. A vinaigrette, absolutely, Greg. That will only kind of like enhance the acidity that's already there. It's a very kind of what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's suited for a lot of cuisines. Is there any questions on this wine? Anybody drinking this wine right now? Want to give me some tasting notes? I am not drinking any of the club selections right now, but would love to hear some thoughts. Or if not, you can type it in the chat. No need to pipe up. So I'm going to move on to
Darlene's
go ahead.
tasting notes are she likes it.
Yeah.
Hey, that's good enough, Paul. I'll take it. I'll take it. Wonderful to hear.
I'm generally, I prefer drier Rieslings, but this one's not bad, even to my palate.
Definitely. I mean, the sugar's only, it's only 1.4%. It is on the lower end. Again, because of that acidity, you do kind of want to find a balance between sugar and acid. I like to lean towards acidity. However, it's very vintage dependent. Sometimes you don't have a lot of acidity to work with. In other years, you have a lot of acidity to work with. So it's finding the right balance between the two. Awesome. All right, on to the Stonebridge Red. So this is the 23. I'll give a brief overview of the 2023 harvest. It was a good harvest in general. It was a little cooler. You can kind of see from some of these sugar numbers were, 19.7, 19, 20, 21.5 for the Chancellor. That's not um out of the ordinary. So it was a little cooler of a vintage. We did retain a lot of acidity in that vintage in that year, and we also had really cool days. It was cloudy. It wasn't rainy, but it wasn't particularly warm and sunny. So sugar accumulation was a little low. Alcohol numbers were probably around that 11.5 to 12% instead of more like 12 to 12.5%. Um, and as many of you know, the Stonebridge Red is kind of it's our hybrid red blend, and it in the past maybe 3 or 4 years we have been kind of playing around with the hybrids that we use. We have been getting some Leon Malo. That was a new kind of addition that year. Oh, I should also mention we had a bad spring frost in 23. And so that is a result. So some of these sugar numbers, like the 19.7 on the Leon Malo, for example, is a result of that spring frost. So what happened is in April, we got a freeze. And so all of the buds on the vines that had been working really hard to grow shoots and therefore grow grape clusters died. And so what happened was the really cool thing about grapes is they have um, up to three buds in each kind of node on the cane. And so there's basically three chances for the grape to start growing. And so what happened is we got a lot of what viticulturists or winemakers call secondary nodes. So it was basically a late start because of that spring frost in April. All that work they had been working on for basically the past 3 or 4 weeks was wasted. So the vines were essentially 3 or 4 weeks behind, depending on the vineyard. Atwater fared pretty well that vintage. We did get hit pretty hard in the Lagrein, and our Central Block Riesling got hit really bad that vintage. However, the Vineyard Rockhouse where we got the Leon Malo got hit really, really hard. They're quite a few miles off the lake over in Dundee. Um, and so because of that, the alcohols were a little lower and acidity is a little higher on this wine than past vintages. Um, and then we got some Noire, which we have worked with before. It's a very spicy, I like to call it Christmassy. It's got some kind of spices, but also like a piney element to it, which is really fun for blending. And then the Chancellor from our friends over at Buttonwood, they do a great job, which we have used Chancellor many times before. And then there's a little Cabernet Franc in there, uh, just kind of to balance things out. Um, so the fermentation is pretty straightforward again for this. These are all open top bins. Those of you who were at or come to the Harvest Jubilee know kind of what I'm talking about. So back to Trish here. Um, the grapes are kind of sorted on the sorting chute here, and then instead of going into the press, they're pumped straight into bins again. And so this is where a lot of our red wines ferment. Um, and they ferment on their skins. And as Trish is doing, she's doing punch downs. We do this about 2, sometimes 3 times a day. It depends on the variety. Um, and so all of these were open top bin fermented. Um, and then punch downs are 2 to 3 times a day, depending on the variety and depending on whether or not they need it. And then before bottling, of course, they're blended together, but they're all aged separately. So we press them off all separately, and then age them in relatively neutral French oak barrels for 8 to 9 months. In this case, about 8 months. And slight typo that I did not notice earlier, it did go through malolactic fermentation, um, and then was bottled. Um, So again, this is for those of you who are kind of Stonebridge Red uh who've been kind of through seen a lot of vintages of Stonebridge Red, you will know that this is a little drier than normal. I have been kind of pushing the Stonebridge to a less sweet style. We will see how well that works. Um, but again, it does have some higher acidity from the vintage, little slightly lower alcohol at 10.3. That is a result of that spring frost. And yeah, any questions on the Stonebridge Red? Okay. We will move on to the Lagrein, which is, I hope you guys, if you, for those of you who have not opened this, what a wonderful wine. Um, so this is our first vintage of Lagrein in a barrel aged, skin fermented, whatever, red wine form. We've played around with Lagrein as rosé. We've made pet nets out of it. But this year we finally gotten to the point, or the 2024 vintage, we finally got to the point where um, ah, um, we were able to make enough wine that it made sense to make a red wine out of it, and barrel it down. We didn't have, we actually had, a few hundred gallons instead of like 50 or 60 like we've had in the past. This is a really cool grape. It's native to northern Italy. Alto Adige is the region that it's primarily grown in. Um, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it's related to Syrah in some capacity, which makes sense. It shares similar kind of blackberry bramble notes to it. And it does really well in the kind of alpine, cooler regions. And there was a few people in the Finger Lakes that were growing it or kind of trying it out. And we hopped on board and we planted the original Lagrein when we planted our Zweigelt. And we quickly realized that although Zweigelt is a nice grape, it doesn't particularly grow as well as the Lagrein did. Um, and so we've been planting more and more of it over the past few years. And the 2024 vintage really kind of just made this grape shine. Again, it was, fermentation is open top bins. This time it was for about 22 days. Fermentation lasts usually kind of as long as, well, the fermentation does. I don't push it or force it to stop at any point or press it. I try not to press it off too early. I usually try to press off um, the reds once those fermentation is done. And in this case, it was 22 days. Um, Aged in barrels for 9 months. Pretty typical Atwater style. Bone dry. Not nice acidity. 6.6 grams is kind of like 6.5 is usually the number. Numbers are subjective and based, kind of based off of pH level, but 6.5 to 7 is really like a sweet spot. Again, 12% alcohol. This is kind of a perfect storm. And is a very young wine. If you have multiple bottles of this or you have it open now or you haven't opened it yet, this could use a decant for sure. And this wine will also age, I think, really, really well. It's very young. It's very kind of out there and has a lot of tannin and a lot of flavor and texture to it right now. This will be, although it's drinking really well now. I had a bottle of this, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This will be tasting absolutely spectacularly in 3 to 5 years. Um, and for those of you who really like this wine, rest assured we have almost twice the amount from the 2025 vintage. So there will be more to come, and it is not going anywhere. This is definitely going to be a new, hopefully, kind of a staple for Atwater. This is a great, wonderful grape. It grows really well, and it's really disease resistant, or comparatively to like Pinot Noir or something like that, or even Syrah. Um, it's a it's a really good. It's going to be a really nice grape to be growing in the region. And I hope not just us, but I hope other kind of other wineries adopt this grape as well, kind of down the line. Um, yes, cousin of Syrah. Oh, and a grandchild of Pinot. Thank you, Amy, for those that quick fact. That makes sense. It shares kind of, it also kind of goes into the cherry, earthy herbaceousness that Pinot Noir can also have. But clearly doesn't have any of the finickiness that Pinot Noir has as well. Um, any questions on the Lagrein?
Not a question, but a comment. It was in
Yes,
our,
Paul.
obviously it was in
Yep.
our case club this quarter,
Yes.
but I hadn't tasted it yet. So when we actually came up a couple weeks ago for pickup weekend, and I tried it there, and it was good enough that not only did I keep the ones that came in the case club, I got a couple more.
Good. I
Yes.
hope so. It's I'm not joking when I'm very excited about this grape.
It
Um,
it's very it's a heavier body than
yes.
I thought in reading the description of it. Very dark
It's
color.
very yes, it's kind of known to have a very dark color and also a little higher acidity than than other varieties. In Italy, it does tend to have a fair amount of tannin. I think the tannin that you might be tasting on this is a lot of it has to do with the 2024 vintage. But the 2025 Lagrein that's in barrel right now also does show some um, does show some pretty prominent tannins. So I hope that's a theme. Again, it's still a grape that I've never worked with before, or kind of have very new to me. So some styles might
Yeah.
change, or some techniques might
It
change
was
as I
new to
go
us
forward.
too, so I wasn't sure what I was in for, but I was pleasantly surprised, I'll say.
Good, good.
Good.
I think we all have been. Okay. And then we have last but not least, the fourth option is the Vidal Reserve. Um, this was kind of I had worked with Vidal before, and had wanted to return to working with Vidal. We had some on the farm, although we no longer do. Um, so I got word of some Vidal that was available from Breakneck Creek is the vineyard, but that's run by the Haslets. And it was available, and they were asking around if anybody wanted it, and it was maybe a ton or two that was going to be it. And I said, yeah, sure, let's give it a go. Um, I had an idea to treat Vidal kind of like a Chardonnay. Um, and so this was basically a kind of an experiment. Um, and in the mostly in the fact that I knew I wasn't going to add any SO2. So SO2 is short for sulfur dioxide, which is an extremely common preservative, not only in wine but in your French fries, in your you name it. It's all over the place. Um, it's not necessarily the devil, um, but it is a preservative, and I don't know. It's something that I try to use, in moderation, and sometimes in this case, not at all. Um, I so I basically kind of went into this thinking, well, this Vidal is one, it's going to be a project. Let's just see what happens, and let's see if we can make a wine that's not flawed without sulfur. And I think I have achieved this with this wine. Um, and so it was a kind of an interesting fermentation. It started out in a tank and eventually was kind of racked midway into barrels after harvest in February. And as it finished fermentation, it was very slow. It doesn't say in the notes here, but I think the fermentation took almost over a year. Um, it was very, very, very slow. Um, and it was just hanging out in barrels. I believe it's about 15 months. I don't think it's on here. 13 months. I was close. Um, and I'm really happy with this wine. Vidal is like a very tropical. Pineapple is what the main kind of fruit aroma that you're gonna get. However, because of the 2023 vintage, it was a kind of a cooler year. We only got about 22 bricks, which for Vidal is pretty low. Um, I'll talk about the future of this wine in a minute, and we'll go back to the harvest bricks. So keep that in mind. So 22 is perfect. Um, and the acidity was spot on. It was really kind of, again, I've said perfect storm probably 5 times, but it really was a great combination of a great harvest for this variety, and it worked out really well. You get a lot of body and texture um, from that lees aging in the barrel. You do pick up some barrel notes, although the barrels were relatively neutral. They were the wine was in there long enough where you do pick up some toasty aromas. Um, and ultimately, yeah, I'm very happy with this wine. I hope those of you who got this wine are enjoying it. It is a little different. It does have some kind of very like yogurty, curdy, like lemon curd, textural um, bits to it that might not be everybody's cup of tea. Oxidative, yet it's fruity. Um, I'm very proud of this wine. Again, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I hope you all are liking it who've gotten it. Um,
We opened a bottle earlier today after lunch and had a glass, and it your description is much better. To me, it's got its own unique flavor. I don't know
yes.
that I've tasted that flavor in anything lately.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just the Vidal, whether it was the style in which it was made. Um, I
D, all of the above.
yes, pretty much. It's an interesting, unique wine, if anything. So yeah, that's that wine. The future, if you like this wine, the future of this wine is at least the 2024 and 25 vintages are kind of bleak. Um, I made this wine again in 2024. However, there was a bit of a miscommunication with the grower, and we were not able to get it until the sugar levels were about 24 bricks, 25 bricks, which results in a wine that's about 14% alcohol. Um, it is still in a tank right now. It was in barrels for about a year, and we just took it out and put it back into a tank at this past October. Um, and right now it's going to remain in that tank for this foreseeable future. I'm going to see what some really extended lees aging will do to that wine. Um, so that's the case for the 24 Vidal Reserve, and then the 25 similar situation. And we only got like just under 1 ton. And for those of you who don't really know like ton to case numbers, that's basically about 60 cases. So we got a very, very small quantity. Um, it just didn't crop very well in 2025. And so we tried some skin ferment with it. Um, and that is currently kind of finishing fermentation and aging. So it's kind of a TBD for that. But I will continue to try to replicate essentially the 2022 Vidal going forward, um, and just kind of see how that goes. Um, yeah, see some chat questions. Yes, on the dried fruit, Scott. It does have some oxidative qualities to it, just due to being aged in oak for basically a year, and also that sulfur as well. The lack of sulfur does lead to a slightly more oxidative wine. Um, I know, Amy. I Liz told me the other day, and I was surprised. Amy said in the chat that the Vidal is Liz, who is our you may or may not know her. She works in the tasting room. She loves the Vidal. It is like I said, it's a very unique wine. It's a fun project. So yeah, and that's kind of why it's available to you guys right now. And again, it's 100 cases. It was 2 tons. or not even 2 tons. That's a ton and change. Um, ton and a half. Regina, on 99% of the wines have some sort of sulfites. You would be hard pressed to find no sulfur wines in the Finger Lakes. There's a handful of people who do genuinely no sulfur. And for reference, or not for reference, but just so you know, fermentate yeast produce a very small amount of sulfur naturally, about 20 parts per million. And I try to keep all of our wines under 100 parts total. Sulfur has two kind of states. It has the total that's in the wine, and then it has the free sulfur that is kind of floating around, unbound to other, uh, basically just floating free as like a particle or a chemical. If that chemical is not the right word, it makes it sound like there's something wrong with the wine. But and then as the wine is exposed to oxygen, that sulfur binds with oxygen, and that's the preservative sense. Um, for whatever it's worth, there is more sulfites in McDonald's fries than there is in any bottle of wine that you will drink. Sulfur is kind of like a one of those things in the wine world that has somehow gotten the spotlight, um, and is like treated like it's the devil's powder or something. When used improperly, you will know and you will smell it. It will smell like sulfur. Um, yes, I mean it's sulfite free in the sense that I didn't add any. Um, it does have, I imagine it has some amount of natural sulfur. So if she does have a sulfite allergy, uh, I would be very careful with even wines that say they're sulfur free. There are, again, yeast produce upwards of 20 parts per million, which is very, very low. The legal limit for whatever it's worth is 300 parts per million in a wine. Um, so I would be cautious if um and yes, sulfite free wines can be flawed. There's a reason we use it. The ancient Romans used sulfur. It is a like anything in moderation. It's not going to hurt you. And if you can smell it, well, then there's probably too much in there. And you'll smell it if it's in there. So anyway, that's my sulfur rant. Um, yeah. So if there's any other questions, feel free to speak up or type them in the chat. We do have some wine club questions. I know Amanda's in here. I don't know if she had anything prepped for this. If not, feel free to think about some of these questions. You don't have to answer them now. Please feel free to email any of us, me, George, Amy, Amanda.
We
And
I don't know if Amanda is available to talk right now. I wrote the questions, so I'll just tell you a little bit about them. We are always trying to make sure that you guys are getting what you want and need from your experience as wine club members. We're always trying to make sure that the events we have you're satisfied with. So we wanted to make sure that we're keeping your favorite events the same or better. That we might be doing some new events that you would like to see. If you maybe are a member at another wine club and they're doing something that you think would be perfect for Atwater, we'd love to hear about it, or any other feedback that you have. So if you have any ideas right now and want to unmute yourself and talk about it, we'd love to hear. Otherwise, you can email us.
cool.
And Amanda, I see you're back. So do you want to add anything to
Yeah.
that?
So I've been here the whole time. Did anybody that's on tonight make it to one of the club happy hours during the summer? No. Okay. Yeah, we're just kind of interested to see, because we'd love to provide events that, you all enjoy, and put our effort toward that. We'd love to get together and
Amanda, do you mean like the meet and greet that you had a couple weeks ago after pickup weekend or something
well, I
different?
mean, that is one of them, the holiday pickup. But in the summer, once a month, we did a wine club
Oh, yeah,
gathering.
okay. I've seen that on
Yeah,
your, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
and we try to do that just because not everyone can make it to the pickup parties, things like that. So we're trying to offer different experiences if you can't come to town on those 4 weekends a year. Um, Trying to make everyone feel included in what we have to offer so they don't feel like they're missing everything. So yeah, we're just trying to make it a little more inclusive for everybody and give them more options, but we want to put our efforts and time into what appeals to you guys.
We did a summer, we planned a spring jubilee this year, and we didn't get anyone registered for it. And we heard from a couple of local people that they thought it was only for the top tier wine club members, which it was not true. It was for all our wine club members, but we had hoped that people could come and see the vineyard we planned it for June.
Yeah, in the spring when everything was kind of waking up and flowering and about to go into fruit set and kind of see the vineyards from the beginning of.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, weekdays happy hours are tough.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
maybe.
we were doing the ones in the summer on Saturday nights. But yes, if there was a certain day that works better, I know some members who are retired don't like to come on weekends because they want to avoid the crowds, which I understand. They're very informal events, so it's kind of fun and you can come as it works for you if you go out on the wine trail during the day and want to pop in after. But yeah, if there are certain days of the week that work or don't work, we're always open to hear that feedback as well. School holidays. Yep. Wonderful. Yeah, feel free to email me personally too. I'm always, or text me on my private line. It'll go right to my work line and can always converse that way too.
Awesome. Again, emails if you need to. I mean, George and mine's on here. Amanda's is just Amanda at watervineyards.com. Amy is just Amy at watervineyards.com. Don't be shy. We are available if you need anything. And yeah.
Wes, were you going to tell us about the secret wine you're drinking?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just drinking the 2025 Pet Nat. I didn't have any of the club wines.
Is it rosé or white?
It's rosé. It's similar to, so it's basically a combination of last year's Pet Nats. So it's Gewürztraminer, or it's Zweigelt and Gewürztraminer. We just did one this year instead of two. Instead of the Zweigelt Diamond or the Gewürztraminer Aramella, it is now Zweigelt Gewürztraminer. And it is very nice. It's kind of a good mix between the two, which is kind of the goal. It's light, it's easy drinking, does not explode when you open it. Yeah.
That's always a plus.
Yes. And for club members, or not necessarily for club members, we will, if for the few of you who are in here, we will have if you like Pet Nats, we will have the 2024 Aramella Gewürztraminer Pet Nat available probably early 2026. We are working on making that not explosive.
Are you going to disgorge it?
Yes, we are gonna try to. We're gonna send a little off to get disgorged. We're gonna see how that goes, and hopefully that fixes the. It's not the explosiveness. It doesn't explode upon opening. It just doesn't stop carbonating. If that makes sense.
Fizzing over.
It does. Yeah, it doesn't stop fizzing over, which is the Aramella's fault. Again, not a variety I had really worked with a lot. And my consensus amongst not only me but amongst other peers who have used Aramella for PetNat is it's the same problem. They have issues with just nonstop carbonation upon opening. Also slow as it is, it just does not want to stop. For whatever reason, Aramella just has the chemistry. Just does not like bubbles. So we're going to try some disgorgement. It's delicious.
Yeah, there are some people who persist in drinking it despite the
I hope so. One of those people are me.
well, no,
Um,
I mean there's some people that just bought a case a couple weeks ago. George, people
of
who
the Aramella, I didn't know that was
Yeah.
available.
George
Really?
has
Well,
a special
certain people know
arrangement
about it.
with
Oh,
if people will sign like a top secret release that they understand how
an
what
NDA,
happens
yeah.
to it. Yes, and an NDA that I'm not supposed to be, so I'm going to be sued by George, my husband, for telling you all.
Well, that makes me feel better. That makes me feel good. I mean, it's a great wine, but it is tricky
Yeah, so
to
people
deal with.
people who feel like are willing to,
Yeah, willing to deal
if
with
they
it.
know what they're getting into, they
Yeah,
can take it.
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, we're gonna try some disgorgement because we have a lot of it. And I hope that it works. We will see. I think we're gonna maybe do some trial runs with the disgorgement people, um, and see how it goes before we do like all of it, to see if it actually works. Yeah.
Are there any updates, Wes, on the schedule for the next method sparkling in the wing?
Oh,
I know we have
um,
some that are aging, but we are getting low and didn't know what the plan was for the next one.
I don't necessarily know. The next one would be the 2021, which is half Pinot Noir, half Chardonnay. Which I think I tasted, it's 2025 now. Maybe I tasted really, really early 2025. I taste them somewhat often, just to kind of see how they're doing. That would be the next. I mean, we can disgorge at any minute. It is only kind of basically 4 years on the lees, which is a little light for us, but um, it tastes nice. It needs no dosage, so it's a pretty easy disgorge and then cork and then release. My guess would be it will not be available until this time next year. And knowing George, that's just my guess.
Well,
Would
if
be
you
this
need
time.
a second opinion to taste, just let me know.
Oh, I will let you. I know it goes so quickly that I have not opened one. I have not opened one in at least 7 or 8 months. Maybe I'll see if I can open one for the Christmas party next week.
I think that's a great idea, Wes.
All right, I'll open a few a few sparklings. And for the club members in the chat, we do have many more sparklings coming. We've been doing them every year now instead of every other year or every 3 years or whatever they were doing before. So if you like our bubbles, we will have more. We'll have some rosé bubbles at some point. It will be a while, but they are in the works. Yeah. That's kind of all I got on the bubbles.
Did you
Go
see
ahead.
the question in the chat? When you taste, how different
Oh.
how different is it from the final project when you're tasting early?
Regina, is this kind of on the sparkling wines or just any wine in general?
You just mentioned that you were tasting, so I was just curious in general, like when you taste, is it, I mean, if it's going to be better, but I'm just curious How much better is it when you taste it to what you produce? I'm just curious.
I'll stay on the topic of sparkling wine. So those wines are currently what's called entourage. So they're aging on their lees, which is the basically the sediment or the yeast that has fallen kind of out of solution and is essentially what's a non-disgusting word to use? I'm just going to use the word that comes to mind is basically decomposing, or basically it's releasing all of these wonderful flavors and aromas that you would expect, like brioche and toast. Not necessarily like oakiness, but like a buttered croissant, like that you can kind of get in a sparkling wine. That's why they're aged so long. So I'll taste our sparkling wines. I don't know, every so often. I try not to do it too much because I love I love to do it. Um, and I just kind of see where they're at. Is it ready to be released, or is it too austere, or is it too sharp, or does this need, another year or so in the bottle or two? It's hard to gauge, like, oh, does it need a year? Does it need 2 years? It's not that static. It's not like, oh, I know I'm gonna get this result after 4 years um of aging, if that makes sense. It's very kind of each vintage and each wine. So for sparkling wine, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And for just normal wines, like red wines in particular, before I barrel them, like I'm tasting them in like basically now or even in October or November. And I kind of expect them to be kind of weird and have a lot going on and kind of discombobulated and maybe have too much acid or too much tannin. Um, and that, in my mind, that's a good thing, because I know over time those flavors or those textures and aromas, they're going to kind of tone down a little bit as the wine ages, as it goes through malolactic conversion, or as it's like slowly exposed to oxygen in the barrel. So that's kind of what I'm looking for when I taste a wine that's either aging or even a wine that's been released. Um, like the Lagrein, for example. Like I know that's got a lot going on, and it's bold, and it's tannic, and it has acid, and it has concentration. And I taste it, I think, okay, great. I know that in 3 to 5 years, it's still going to be wonderful. And all of those crazy things are going to be in harmony, or hopefully in harmony. You never know, but after tasting so many wines, you kind of learn to figure out what may or may not happen you develop a sense of foresight, at least for the wine. Um, yeah. And then Scott, I saw you asking about orange. Lots of question marks. Are you asking about the orange wines that are going on, or um, just kind of an update on that, or what were you thinking? And Regina, the ice wine, maybe. I'm trying to do a Celsius style Riesling that's genuine, if that makes sense. In the past, with those wines, we would force freeze them. We would pick them and then we'd take them into a freezer, freeze them, and then all the water would evaporate and concentrate. It's kind of a pseudo ice wine. So I try to do late harvest wines when the vintage allows it, which the past 24 was not a year for that. I do have some late harvest Riesling in the works right now. I don't know if it's going to work out. It's not going to be like a Celsius, but it might be a slightly off dry. Not like our semi dry, like not like the normal Riesling, maybe a little more viscous than that, a little riper. Um, maybe is I'm trying. It's my answer to that. And then Scott, if you're still here, I don't know if you're still here. Um,
We are, sorry.
Oh, you are. No, you are. Wonderful. No need to talk if you don't want to. I was just curious about your orange question. Um, were you looking to inquire about the current orange wine program, or what's going on?
So change the subject real quick, then you can return.
That's fine.
And
No
this is
worries.
probably directed at Amy. What a magnificent sunset picture at the bottom of this slide.
Thank you. I honestly can't remember if this is one that Amanda took one very much like this, so this might be hers.
I honestly don't know. I have taken thousands of sunset photos over the years, and every time it's like, oh, that's better than the last, but they're all beautiful.
This one looks really nice to me.
Thank you. I thought we needed a change in this slideshow. But yeah, so either Amanda or I took it, and it was a lovely night.
Well, maybe she took it and you just put it on the slide, and so you both get credit.
Thank you. I like that. Let's both get credit.
Okay, I return you to your regularly scheduled Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Paul.
Hey, sorry about that.
No worries.
All right. Yeah, my laptop just did blue screen of death. I apologize as I was in the middle of talking, but
no worries.
Yeah, just want to make sure. Dee and I were at the orange tasting. It was either 2021 or 2022, and it was fabulous. And I know at the time, George had promised, we're going to go forward with the orange varieties. I just want to make sure that is there something in the future, still planned for the orange wines going forward?
Oh yes. Yes. I've been making more orange wine than ever. All the Pinot Gris is all skin fermented. We've got a 20. So the current
the Gruner's out right now.
The Gruner is out. We're doing skin ferments with the Gruner. We're doing some skin ferments with the Pinot Gris every year, as well as Chardonnay, Riesling, and Gewürztraminer, which get blended into our Ektasi blend. So yes, lots of orange wine.
The Ektasi was our second biggest seller in November.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. It's one of my favorite styles of wine. They might be slightly different to some of the orange wines you've had in the past. I have been aging them mostly due to quantity. In the past they were very small, like 50 cases, 100 cases. But because we've been doing so much of it, I've been aging them for only about 9 months in barrel instead of, say, 12 or 15 or 20 or 30 months, like some of the older vintages have been. Still very orangey, still very extracted, still made in the same way, but still kind of retain a little more of that fruit and less of the oak. So hopefully that's up your alley.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. That's exactly what we were looking for. Thanks, Wes.
Awesome. You're welcome.
If you ever decide to do some throwback wines, I wouldn't mind. This is my usual plea for something you haven't done in a while. The Gewürztraminer Sparkling.
Oh, okay.
And Reverts.
And the Reverts, yes. So the only thing I can really tell you, Paul, is we are making a normal Gewürztraminer again. I know that's not Reverts. We have a very small quantity. It will most likely go to club, so you'll of course get access to it. I have been tasting. A couple years ago, I was very anti Gewürztraminer. It's just direct press, kind of normal Gewürztraminer. And I have been tasting some of the really old, like I'm talking like 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, really old vintage Gewürztraminers from Atwater. And my God, they're wonderful. They're you open that wine and you would never know it's 20 years old. I don't know why that is. I don't know.
So this was aged in a bottle, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 years, 20, it was
Wow.
basically
Holy
the
crap.
2001, 2002 vintage. We've got like a hand, one or two very, very limited bottles, hence why I'm opening them. And we're not selling them. And it's very bottle dependent too with those wines. Like some show really well and others just are bad. It depends on the cork and the closure and all that, and the environment in which they've been aged. They've been sitting in the basement of Atwater for 20 years, which is very wet and cool and kind of disgusting, but great for wine aging. So I've come around to making regular Gewürztraminer again. So we will get some normal Gewürztraminer. And I am very open to doing some sparkling Gewürztraminer again as well.
Yeah, I have one bottle of I forget what vintage it is, 20 or 21.
I think it's 11 or 13. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I have one left, and I'm afraid to open it because I'm saving it for. I'm not sure what I'm saving it for, but it's the last one, as far as I know.
of the sparkling Gewürztraminer.
Sparkling, champagne method,
yeah. That's like 2013 or 2011. I can't remember which vintage. Cool. Well, don't hold on to it too long.
My daughter really loves Gewürztraminer if it has what she calls that it factor, and near as I can tell, the it factor is kind of an orange creamsicle taste.
Okay, Gewürztraminer can be very overwhelming. Regina, you're going to be up here. I'm just responding to your question. The short answer is no. I don't think so. I'd have to check the calendar. Maybe Amanda or Amy knows if there's anything going on.
Well, at Atwater, we're open. We're not open Christmas Day or New Year's Day.
Yes.
But we're open for tastings. And in fact, Greg will be working on New Year's Eve, I think. And if you want to come in for a tasting on New Year's Eve, he will be happy to give you one.
Only if George is spinning the vinyls on New Year's Eve.
I think we're going to be in Boston, actually.
I know. No. There's no party without George spinning the vinyls.
I know. But we're open during the day, every day besides the holidays. So if you want to come in for a tasting, there are not a lot of events around. Scale House might have some music.
Yeah, Scale House will probably have a New Year's Eve or some music going on. Cool.
I just checked, Wes. It's a 2013 that I have.
That kind of rings a bell. I thought it was either 13 or 11.
Gewürztraminer sparkling, yep.
Cool. Yeah, hold on to that, but don't hold on to it too long. I think I also have one bottle left as well. Okay. Unless there's any other questions, I think that's kind of it. Thank you all for coming. It was wonderful talking to you all. Thank you for your questions, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year's.
Festivus.
Yes.
Festivus for the rest of us.
Showing my age a little there.
And yeah, if you have any questions for us,
we can't.
Thank you.
You have to air your grievances if you're going to do Festivus.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you have any questions for us, feel free to send us emails, call, whatever you need to do. We'll be around. We do appreciate any thoughts or feedback or concerns or whatever. Yeah, cool.
Wonderful. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys.
Holidays.
Thanks, Wes and Amy and everybody.
Thank you guys for coming.
Amanda.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Fun. Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
All right, bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right.